psychology and science. I like to go over with my students all the time the fact that why do psychology need science? For a long time, I'm hoping that your teachers got into this with you guys, because usually a science chapter is like the most boring chapter to learn about. I know it was for my students, but I always did stuff to screw with them and make it fun. So hopefully I'm able to use what I used with them to help you guys learn about it a little bit better and understand it, because one of the FRQs will be science-based. And it's best that you know all the different methods of study so that whatever they throw at you, you're able to answer it. And this is what today is. So yes, research methods, science, boom. So we're going to go over methods of study, which is different research methods. We're going to go over what an experiment is. We're going to break it down. We're also going to go over the different types of methods of studies. We're going to go over how ethics can affect your experiment. We're going to talk a little bit about correlation. What is the difference between correlation and experiment? Statistics and how it relates, to psych. And then we're going to go over FRQs, do's and don'ts. Curiosity. Do any of you guys have a teacher that taught you about SODAS when you're doing your FRQs? Just out of curiosity, anybody? Or do you guys even know? Nope. Okay, good. Because I actually am going to eliminate one of those letters. Yep. We're going to eliminate a letter because you guys have like a time frame that you're stuck in. And I'm going to give you the best advice I can give you to try to get you through your test really quickly, kind of what I'm telling my own students, especially because open note, open book. And kids can tend to want to flip open the book and look up everything, but it's a time constraint test. And you guys are only going to have 45 minutes to do 2 FRQs. One, which they're going to expect you to do in 25 minutes, and the other one in 15. Oh, your teacher hasn't taught you FRQs at all? I'll go over it with you. I would highly suggest that, and this PowerPoint will be uploaded. So you guys will be able to go on the website and click on it and go back to it, and hopefully it'll help you study. Okay? Yeah? Cool. So we're gonna move on a little bit. Do any of you have any questions before I move on? Don't worry, I will go over SODAS and talk about FRQs at the end. So we're gonna go over the science part and the FRQ part. So I'm not gonna leave anything. Oh, you haven't practiced FRQ. I will tell you this. Have you guys gone and looked at the demo yet? Have you guys gone and looked at the demos? On AP Classroom, yes. I actually shared it with my own students, and I'll see if I can get it for you guys. Yes, I would highly, definitely do the demo. You don't want to take it and never having gone through the demo so you know what is going to be going into it. Watch the videos, know what to expect, because when you know what to expect, the timing is going to go fast. The time that clock is going to tick, and seeing a countdown is going to freak you out. But what I always tell my students is breathe in and blow out, because you either know it or you don't. Giving yourself anxiety, making yourself freak out, whatever AP test you're taking, whether it's AP Lit, AP Lang, AP US, AP Gov, AP Psych, whatever test, you have to be in the right mindset. And being relaxed and breathing and letting your anxiety just go is the best method. I have quite a few students that like to freak themselves out about testing. And the best advice I could give to you is breathe. How many of you forget to breathe? Kind of like you're holding your breath. Yeah, or no. Exactly. So let's move on and we can get through the science part, and then I'll get to the FRQ since some of you haven't done it. I would definitely, if any of you have an account at AP Classroom and you've never done an FRQ at all, I would definitely do some practice ones, at least 2 or 3 before you do it, before you take the AP exam. That's my best advice for you. But definitely go to Dr. Moles, because Dr. Mole is going to have those FRQ 1 through 4 and 5 through 7 next week, if you have time. Okay, so we're going to talk about psychology and science. You all should recognize the scientific method. Who remembers their 6th grade science project? Yep, or no? Who remembers having to do the Mommy and Me project? Okay, so it's kind of like a review of that, but only we're going to apply it to science and to psychology, which is it's really fun and cool if you know what to do and how to do it, because all you're going to do is a manipulation and a reaction. That's it. Okay, so why does psychology need science? Well, it needs science because there's a lot of unexplainable things. Not just that, but for a long time, psych was not given any respect. It wasn't given any kudos whatsoever. Oh, you're a psychologist and you want to call yourself a doctor? Yeah, right. I still get in arguments with teachers on my campus who like to argue with me about the fact that psychology is not a science. And I'm like, well, do I cover independent, dependent variable? Yes. Do we do experiments? Yes. Do we talk about correlation? Yes. Do we talk about statistics? Yes. Do we study behavior? Do we have a hypothesis? Do we have a theory? Then what do you call that? Because psych mixes society, social behaviors. That's why. Does that make sense to you? Even the last chapter, did your teachers get through all the chapters with you guys? Yep or no? Or whose teacher just stopped teaching to the unit and they're not teaching you the last three? Yep or no? Because think like this, before science and psychology, remember Freud, who no one wanted to give credence to and he wasn't respected at all. You had all these ideas and no testable hypothesis. And the thing is about science is it gives psychology its teeth. It literally does. Are you guys familiar with the Stanford prison guard experiment? Yep or no? Who's familiar with Stanford prison guard? Okay. How about the Milgram study? How about Milgram? Okay. Those are all experiments. And they took the scientific process. They had an idea, a hypothesis. They theorized it, and then they tested it. And then they repeated it. And what makes, and we all know this because we all have our basic science classes, right? What makes a theory proven? It's the fact that you can do what with it? What do you think? Yeah, Pavlov and his dogs, which Pavlov... And it's funny because I always tell my students, Pavlov hates the fact that he actually went down and he's remembered in psychology more than being for what he was studying for when he was studying the digestive system, which is very hilarious. Yes, cause and effect, dependent, independent variable. So, and here's the thing. When I show you at the end, the last slide in today's notes, right? What I did was I pulled up old AP exams so you guys can kind of see what a science question looks like on the AP exam. And they use parts of the experiment a lot. Like they're always asking for operational definition of the independent variable, operational definition of the dependent variable. And kids get thrown off because they hear operational definition. It's just asking, tell me what the independent variable is and what the dependent variable is. That's all it's asking. But kids get thrown off. So if you just break it down and make it really simple, it's as simple as it appears. Yeah? Am I going too fast for anybody? Please let me know because I want to make sure you get what you need out of this. Okay. So as I was telling you before, hold on. Okay. When we conduct experiments, we have to have specific type of rules. We have what we call blind studies and double blind studies. Now, will this appear on an AP exam? Possibly. It's a big possibility. I have yet to see it, but it's important for you to know the vocab. So do any of you know what a blind study is? Can anybody answer in the chat? Nah. Do you know the difference between a blind study and a double blind study? Okay. So a blind study is when they conduct an Either the participant or the experimenter both don't know. Okay, the participant doesn't know that's a blind study. Okay, the double blind is the experimenter. They hire someone to conduct the experiment, but the people conducting it don't know. That's a double blind. They don't know who's getting the placebo and who's getting the independent variable, who's in the control group and who's in the experimental group. That's a double blind. They're being hired by a separate entity to conduct the experiment. That's a double blind study. And then after they get the results, people look at the results outside of it. We're in just like what you're saying in the chat, we're in a blind study. Yeah, perfect. I love it. I love it. I love it. See, you guys are really prepared already. You don't need me. All of these are part of the experimental process. Any of them can appear on the AP exam, and they have appeared. Anybody's nervous. I get nervous. I'm nervous right now. Do you know how many? It's been 5 months since I've streamed. The last time I streamed was 5 months ago. No, don't get me wrong. I talk to my students every day. I Zoom with them because we're getting ready and preparing for the exam. But it's nerve-wracking to test, period. But you have it within you. It's like I tell my students, and I'm going to let you guys know. If you know this, then you know it. Don't let your anxiety and your stress levels freak you out. You got this. You have to go into the test thinking, I got this. I got a 3. Do you get what I'm saying? It's going to happen. Heck, I got a 5. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to break down. A theory is what we think might happen. So before we do any type of experiment at all, we have what we think is a theory, an idea of what might happen. So then we're going to come up with the hypothesis. The hypothesis is what you're going to test out. The idea, then the actual thing, which is this is what's going to happen. When you do this, you have to have an experiment, which has a control group and an experimental group. Okay, the experimental group is the group that gets what? Can anybody tell me? What does the experimental group get? It's going to get a variable. Can anybody tell me what variable it is? No, that's experiment. That is yes. So the difference between the experimental group and the control group. Experimental group gets the independent variable. They get the manipulation. The control group gets the placebo. Yeah? Now, don't get thrown off if you see on the AP exam, it doesn't say experimental group or control group. It says experiment condition or control condition. It just means the same thing. Does everybody get that? Yeah? Cool. So you're going to have these two groups. Now, how do we make it fair when we're testing and experimenting? Well, we have to have what we call random assignment. You can't just put whoever you want. And let me give you an example. We're just doing a normal everyday test for a drug. Let's say we're going to do a COVID drug test, okay? Which we kind of need right now. All right. And I have groups of patients that are waiting to be tested and they're volunteering. But I can pick by not having random assignment, I can make it unfair. You have to make it so that you won't know who's getting the control, who's getting the independent variable, or who's getting the placebo. It's random chance. Do you guys get it? Yes. The control group gets the placebo. The experimental group gets the independent variable. The dependent variable is the reaction to the manipulation. Yeah? Okay, so we got, watch this. We have an idea, and then we come up with a hypothesis, which is a prediction about what's going to happen. Okay, so we're going to experiment it out. We need to experiment on groups. So we have to have two groups to compare results to. We have to have an experimental group and a control group. The experimental group is going to get the independent variable. They're going to get the manipulation. But we have to have a group to compare those results to, which would be the control group. The control group is the group that gets the placebo, which is the sugar pill. Yeah? So far, so good? Okay. So what we're looking for in our hypothesis is the reaction to the manipulation, which is the dependent variable. What is the reaction to the medicine? So when we're looking at the study, we're not going to even look at the results of the control group. We're going to only look at until the end. When we're looking at the study and what we're trying to manipulate, we're going to look at the reaction to the independent variable. That's the dependent. The dependent cannot exist without the independent variable. It's a cause and effect. Yeah? Okay. So then after they do this experiment, they compare the two groups and see if there's any change. Like, for example, you guys all familiar with the Bobo the Clown experiment? Yep, or no? Bandura. Okay. So the two kids that saw the adult beating the crap out of the Bobo the Clown, what did they get? Are they in the control group or the experimental group? What group are they in? The two kids that witnessed the adult through the window, yes, they're in the experimental group. Now, the group of kids that were in the control group that just got led into the room to go play with the toys after never seeing anybody beat the crap out of the Bobo doll, they were just led in the room. What group would they be in? Yes. So you guys understand it? Yeah? Okay. So then the independent variable is them doing what? Watching the adult do what? Yes. So then what's the dependent variable? What are we looking for? What's the behavior? Yes, the children's reactions. And see? And Albert Bandura's conclusion was what? Yes. There was not that I remember. I really just show the video where it shows the two kids, and I kind of make up the obviously the control group because that's not on the video because I don't have time to show it the whole time. But the idea is that there's a placebo group and there's an experimental group. The independent variable is the manipulation. And then the reaction to that manipulation, which is seeing the kids kick the crap out of Bobo the Clown, do they do the same thing? And obviously, Albert Bandura's hypothesis was proven true because all the kids that saw that went in the room, and what did they do? What did they do, you guys? What did they do to Bobo the Clown? Yes, they beat the crap. I always found it funny that when I asked my students, so who is going to be more violent, the little boy or the little girl? What did you guys notice? Have you seen the video? The girl, yeah. I thought she was more ingenious, especially when she started using the tetherball and I think the pan and then the doll. That was hilarious. Yeah, I know. I was cracking up the first time myself. Okay, yeah, she went nuts. So before I move on, do you guys all understand those key things? Experimental group and control group. Independent and dependent variable. If you hear operational definition, they're just asking you specifically, what is that specific variable in that experiment? So it's not enough to say the manipulation is the independent variable. You have to identify what the manipulation is in the experiment that they cite. Does that make sense? All right, cool. So let's move on. Hey, this is actually turned out to be easy and fun. Who would have known? Okay, so then we have the important thing, and this is going to go back to the Zimbardo experiment, okay? Psychologists used to do all sorts of crazy experiments until Philip Zimbardo came around because he did this one crazy experiment that he was planning to conduct for, like, I believe it was supposed to be a 3-week study, and it turned into how many days? Do you guys remember? Yeah.
Was it 3?
Yeah, it was only like 4 or 5 days. He had to shut down after 4 days. So what ends up happening is that experiment seems to be so, what they would call, unethical, that they had to come up with the prison experiment. They had to come up with guidelines so that if you decide you're on let's say, are any of you planning on majoring in psychology? So just out of curiosity, when you go to college, or any of you? Okay. So let's say you decide to get a doctorate, and you want to do a study on campus. You actually have to go in front of a committee and propose your experiment. Not only propose it, but you have to show them how it doesn't violate any of these 7 ethical standards. Okay. First, do no harm, meaning no harm can happen to the participants if they do the study. Was the Zimbardo experiment harmful? What do you think? Okay. Confidentiality. The people taking part in it know that no one's going to, unless you have their permission, no one's allowed to know who they are and that they took part in it. Yeah, it was very brutal. You have to explain any misconceptions, slipping out of Zimbardo and going into the Milgram study. Are you guys familiar with the Milgram study? That's the electric shock one. Did you guys get to see that at all? Yep, or no? A little bit. Okay, do you want me to explain what it is so you can understand what I mean by misconception? Well, in a way, Zimbardo kind of deceived the guys. Okay, Zimbardo, it's like when you ask someone to take part in an experiment, you mislead them, and you don't actually tell them what's going to happen. Do you think that those guys that participated in this experiment knew that they were going to get picked up by cops? Knew that they were going to have to walk around, with what was that suit that they had to wear with actually no underwear underneath? Okay. Thanks. Exactly. Yeah, it was a dress with no underclothes underneath it. I don't know if you guys knew that. Do you think, were they told the possible risks? Like, what could happen? Do you guys think there was any psychological damage because of that? I find it funny. He said that Zimbardo did a study, and he studied and he followed the men that took part in the thing, but he said it had no lasting effects, right? But if you've seen the documentary or the video, you would find out. You remember the guy screaming in the room? The one that was screaming that they had to let go? Okay. Do you guys know what he became? Did any of you actually get to watch this video? Okay. He became a prison psychologist. I don't know if you want to ask me something, but I'm just like, I don't think anybody goes to college to become a prison psychologist. Yeah. But the movie is dramatized. It's not the actual documentary. You can actually find the actual documentary on YouTube, but I didn't tell you that. You got me? You can actually find the actual documentary on YouTube. Was it voluntary? Was the Zimbardo experiment voluntary? In the beginning, it was. Yeah. Was it voluntary? What do you think? Well, was it really voluntary? Because as you were watching the video and people wanted to go home, did they let them? So then was it voluntary? Exactly. Okay. Did the men that signed up for the experiment that were offered $20 a day know what they were signing up for? Did they have informed consent? And then I would think the only thing that Zimbardo did right, which would be number 7, is explain the results. Because if you've watched the documentary, you would know that after they closed the experiment down, they brought everybody together in a room. Yeah, he broke almost all the rules. I say all 6 except for the last one. And brought them all together to go over the results of what they studied. Yeah. But if you want to do any type of psychological experiment, you have to show how your experiment will not violate any of these things. That's how ethics relates to experimental. Now, the reason why I bring it up is because one of the samples that I'm going to show you, debriefing. One of the samples I'm going to show you actually has something ethically wrong with it. And it turns out to be part of one of the questions at the bottom. They ask you, if I remember correctly, it says, I'll go over it at the end, but because we're going to click on it and I'm going to show you, but it asks like, what's wrong with this experiment? How can you fix it? And the ethics, So we've gone over experiment. We've gone over how ethics affects experiments. Coercion is being forced. It just wasn't voluntary, because when they wanted to leave, did they let them? Do you understand? They didn't let them. Eventually they had to let them go. I mean, eventually they realized it wasn't a real and it was a simulation. But when they first wanted to go home, they had to apply to, if I remember correctly, they had to apply to a parole board, right? And they had to get the parole board's permission. I mean, it's an experiment. There's no real parole board, and they're not actually in jail. They're not actually in prison, but they were following all these rules. All because someone gave power to one group and took power away from another. Independent and dependent variable. Yeah? Yeah, so coercion would be like not voluntary, yes. Okay, so you guys feel really good about experiments and ethics? Do you understand it? Is there anything you want me to go over? So you guys are cool? Thank you. Okay, so let's move on. Hold on. We're going to talk about correlation. One of the things I'm going to show you today is going to talk about correlation. As long as you just understand that the difference, but correlation is a way to use to study something. It doesn't prove cause and effect. All it does is show a relationship. Do you guys get that? So if they give you an experiment and it doesn't have any kind of an independent dependent variable, more or less likely it's a correlation study. Especially if there's no cause and effect. There's just a relationship. Yeah? Debriefing is explaining what happened at the end of the experiment. That's something that they did with Zimbardo's experiment. That's also something they did with the Milgram study after they deceived them into electrocuting people. I will tell you this, if you are not familiar with the Milgram study, just go on YouTube. It's on there. Type in Milgram study, Stanley Milgram study, and you'll see and you'll get the gist of what I'm talking about. Yeah. Because you have to debrief and you have to explain any misconceptions after the fact. Okay. So the other way in which they use science, they use correlation. And like I said, correlation is a different way of looking at a behavior and to see, like, for example, they say people like, who in here plays video games? Who plays PlayStation? I'm going to assume you're all teenagers and you all play PlayStation, right? Okay, you PS the PlayStation, yes. All right. How many of you have a game that has violence where you blow people up? Okay, yeah, you're all laughing. But think like this. Does that mean you go to school the next day and start blowing people up? Exactly. But what they'll do is they'll have a correlation study that shows that there's a relationship between people who play violent video games and then go out and commit violence. They can't prove cause and effect. All they can show is that there's a relationship. Does that make sense to you guys? All right. So that's what a correlation study is. If you see the word illusory correlation, okay, what that is, it's just a fancy way of saying an illusion. You guys know what an illusion is, right? Okay, so let's say, anybody play a sport? When you take a test, do you have like a little ritual you do? So that way, yeah. Do you have like lucky socks or something you have to wear all the time so that way you know you're going to win? Have you ever had something lucky or a ritual you had to do? Yeah, okay, exactly. And then you win. That's an illusion of a correlation. That's not real. It's not an actual relationship. It's just coincidence that it happens. That's what an illusory correlation is. It's an illusion of a relationship. Yeah? So y'all understand? Not so much self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like if they give you illusory correlation in a study, and they ask, and there's actually setting up like Ben went to his game, and the last 4 games he won, he was wearing all of his lucky socks, and he never washed them because he thought that if he washed them, he'd lose a game. Does that make sense? It's an illusion in his head. It's not real. It's not so much that you have to it's understanding what the term means. Yeah or no. So if I asked you to one of you guys give me an example of an illusory correlation. Yes. That's it. Does that make sense now? Yep, or no? All right. So scatter plots are something that can appear on the AP exam. Okay, they can show you a picture and ask you to be able to identify what does this mean, and you have to write it down in the FRQ. You should know the difference between a negative skew and a positive skew. Okay, a negative skew is geared up this way, and a positive skew is geared the opposite way. So you should be able to visually see it and identify it. Okay, and then the other skew that shows no connection at all. Okay, so that's pretty much, I don't really think they're going to throw this at you, but it can happen because I've seen it on a few. I've been teaching AP Psych for 14 years now, and I think one year the kids got thrown off because they asked about statistics. Another year they got thrown off because they had to draw a bar graph, which I don't know what's so difficult about drawing a bar graph. You know, like bars, you guys, like a bar showing more than another. Yeah. Statistical significance, yeah. And that matters because numbers matter to people, especially with science. Science is all about you being able to repeat it and do that same study over and over again. Not by chance, exactly. To be able to mathematically compute something. I'm not a math person, so I don't even try. I just want to, as long as you understand the basic terminology, that's all I care about. So does everybody pretty much understand what correlation is? That a correlation is not an experiment. It doesn't show cause and effect. It only shows a relationship. Illusory correlation is just an illusion of a relationship. It's not real. It's coincidence. We all know the difference between a positive skew and a negative skew. Yeah? Cool. This is coming easy. I love it. Usually the science, I wish I could have had some of you in my class because I usually like screw with my students when we're doing the science chapter, like where I throw balls at their head. I don't literally throw balls at their head. I throw wiffle balls, but I never hit a student, but it's pretty hilarious. And it kind of forces the issue with them learning the independent variable. Yeah, it's pretty nuts. I'll explain it at the end because it's like an experiment I'll do. And you guys can tell me if it's an independent or dependent variable. All right, so let's move on to the next one. All right. So then we have statistics. Now, I'm not a math teacher. I've seen in the 14 or 15 years I've taught, or going on 15 now. In the 15 years I taught AP Psych, I've seen one standard deviation question on the exam. One on an FRQ. As long as you understand statistical significance, you're fine. But because I love you and I'm not a math person, what I did, and for those of you, because you're going to have access to this PowerPoint at the end. Okay, there is a link right here. And when you click on it, I hate standard, you guys, there's a reason why I studied psychology and history. I'm not a math person. You math geniuses out there, way to go for you. But I don't even try to teach what I don't know. So what I did on my campus, watch this. I went to the teacher all the kids love, and I had him give me a statistics lesson, and he broke it down, made it really easy, and he let me record it and put it on YouTube. So guess what I have for you? his version of solving for standard deviation. Okay, and it's really easy and really simple, and it takes away from that big equation that makes it so difficult, and it makes it really, really easy. I don't know if the link's going to play on here or not. I'm going to click it and see. But if it doesn't, like I said before, I can still go over this and talk to you about mean, mode, and range, what a negative skew, a positive skew, and a normal. These are histograms. Are you guys familiar with histograms or no? Please tell me your teacher hit you up with the histogram. Thank the Lord. Okay. I do the Harry Potter thing every year, so all my kids kind of know. So the importance, yeah. What it is what you're going to do with all the scores that you get from when you're solving for standard deviation. Okay, which this will explain the video. I'll try and click on it and see, and let's pray and hope that the link works. If it doesn't work, like I said, go on the slides later, click on the link, and it'll go. And then not just the link, but I'll actually post the link in the here in the chat right here, and you guys can click on it anytime. And I would save it for yourselves just so you can review it right before the AP exam. Cool, cool? Okay, so everybody here knows what a mean is, right? No problem. Do y'all know what a mean is? What's the mean then? What's the simple term for mean? It's something we all learned in elementary school. Yes, I love it. You guys are so bad. I didn't say it. Notice I kind of filtered myself. And then we have the mode, which the number that appears the most, that's the one that just keeps appearing. Okay. And then we have the median, which is the number in the middle. Do I think they're going to throw this at you? If we would have been taking a multiple choice test, they would have definitely threw one of these things at you. But just in case, we're covering these three main things. Yeah, yeah? Okay. Mean, mode, range. Okay. Now let me see if Muslar will play. Oh my God, it's going to play. Okay. Hold on.
Standard deviation, take 1. All right, class, today we're going to be talking about standard deviation, how to find it, and more importantly, what it tells you at the end. Okay, so let's take a look at a problem right here. Let's say it says, find the standard deviation of the test scores. So they're giving us some test scores, and they want us to figure out the standard deviation. Now, when you look at standard deviation.
Really quickly, could you see the video? You can only hear it. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share it with you because I don't know why the link isn't working, and I'm gonna share it with you. You guys can click on it later. Cool, cool. Yep, yep. So give me a second. I'm gonna post it. I'm gonna let it play a little bit, and then I'm gonna copy the link and post it in the thing so you guys have access to it. Okay, hold on. Boom, boom. Share. Copy. And there we go. Okay. So yeah, so now that link is not there, you guys. I'm just like, yeah. Sorry for being computer illiterate. Sorry for like being a jerk. Yep, yep. All right, hold on. Let me get back into my presenter. All right. There we go. All right. Let's go to the slide we're supposed to be on, shall we? All right. We're past correlation. We did statistics. You all got the website for the standard deviation, yes? The YouTube link that I sent you all? All right, cool, cool. All right, so the other types of studies, so we have experiment. We talked about correlation. We talked about statistics. We talked about ethics. Then we have case study. Everybody should be familiar with Piaget and Freud, right? You all know who Piaget and Freud is? Please tell me you know who Piaget and Freud is. Please. Thank you. You guys do know that they got all of their theories based on case studies, right? Yes, Piaget was for development. Yeah. Okay, a case study is an observation technique in which one person studies in depth. They study one person in the hopes of learning universal truths about us all. All of Freud's theories, which are seen as unscientific, were based on his patients, who he used as case studies. Piaget, same thing. He used students, and he used them as universal truths of us all. Yeah. It doesn't, but here's the thing about it. Do you all still have the sleeping dream? I mean, the chasing dream. Who has the chasing dream? Who has the falling dream where you wake up and you hit your bed? Yes. So there's the chasing dream, the teeth falling out dream, the naked in public dream. Okay, those are related to Freud. So although it doesn't have any validity, it's his theories have stood the test of time. Not just that, but Piaget. What grade were you guys all in when you guys learned the times tables? Anybody? Do you remember? Yeah, third grade. The reason why you start learning times tables in third grade, because does anybody remember, for those of you that have studied your development, what stage are you in with Piaget when you're in third grade? Remember, there is sensory motor, you remember the different stages, right? Yeah. If I remember, it's operational stage or pre-operational stage. Yeah, because you have sensory motor, pre-operational, operational, and then formal, right? Yes. So according to Piaget, the average child's mind can't understand the concept of, and this is where you test, because this is why I used to have my students do these like developmental studies where they test little kids, is like the kids aren't ready for certain things at a certain age. Like, for example, and he did this because it's just average, and this is based on general students. Like, for example, are any of you like top 10 students? Or any of you like the like you were in GATE and you were like above everybody else? Okay, well, for Piaget's operations, his stages really don't apply to you because you're like ahead. They apply to the general. Does that make sense? Yeah, or no? Okay, so that's how case studies work. It's more about general truths. They're not going to hit everybody because, I mean, how many of you actually believe Freud's theory of where your personality comes from? Does Freud hit everybody or just some? Exactly. So it's like their theories are general truths, but there's always exception to the rule, which is why case studies aren't seen as valid or as scientific as looking at an experiment or correlation or statistics. Make sense or no? I don't know about that. I have all range of students in my classes. I have the really, really high level to the medium level to the kids that just want to challenge themselves and see if they can do it. And I kind of have to teach to all three levels. So that's what I've learned to do. But do you guys feel good about case study? You understand it? Yeah? Okay. So then we have survey, which is a way to dig out information. It's a technique used for attaining self-reported attitudes of behaviors in particular groups, usually by a questionnaire. When you do a survey, you have to do it in a certain way because you can't, let's say, like I use the example when I'm teaching about survey at school, right? I want to do you guys all have really good lunches at your school, or do you have a really crappy cafeteria? For when you went to school? Yeah. Okay. So let's say I wanted to get the opinion. I wanted to do a survey about students at the school where I teach, it's Vista del Lago, about their opinions about the food they serve at lunch. Okay. So when I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set 10 students in the front of the school and 10 students in the back of the school. And I'm going to give them what I would call directions. And I'm going to say and I'm going to set you out 10 minutes before the bell rings because people go out the exit out the back and the front of the school. And I say, every 10th person that passes by you, I want you to ask them, are they happy with the school lunch or not happy with the school lunch? If I do that for a week, do you think I'll get a pretty accurate opinion about what the kids at the school think about their lunch? What do you think? Okay. Now, but yeah, it is going to depend. But and it depends on what they're serving that week. But and that's where survey questions matter. So it's important to know what a survey is, who you're asking, and what the results are that you want. You have to get what they call a representative sample. So I'm doing a study about the students at Vista del Lago, but am I doing a correct study if I question the students at Valley View High School? What do you think? No, because they're not representing the body that I'm trying to get the answers for. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, so that's what I mean. Like when you conduct a survey, it has to be like, and this is to get answers to kind of help lead teachers study stuff. Okay, this is another way to look at behavior. Okay, remember Kingsley did a study. Remember on you guys learned about sexual motivation, yes or no? Did your teacher talk to you guys about that when you guys did the motivation chapter? Yep. Okay. So a doctor did a study on behaviors of sexual motivation, and he did it in 1946. And he did this research study, and it had like 100 questions on it. And he asked people all over the United States. And then he was able to make up general theories and truths based on their answers. And that's what a survey is. But when you conduct a survey, you have to make sure that you're asking people at random. You have a representative sample of the group that you want to do. You have to figure out who is the population you're trying to get these answers about. And then it's random. That you don't pick and choose who the people are that you're asking the questions. That's why I told the student, that's why I would very much give the students the directions. I want you to ask every 10th person that passes by you after school lets out. Because the likelihood, if I do that all week for a week, they're not going to encounter the same person every day. Does that make sense? And that sounds fair, right? And then my survey becomes more valid, and the results become more valid. Yeah. So you guys kind of understand how it works? Yeah, we're cool. Cool beans. I love it. Ugh, we're getting it. All right, cool. All right. So then, after surveys, I got to go back because we missed one. Hold on. There we go. We have naturalistic observations. This is actually a picture of prom from 2009 at the school where I taught. Okay. Naturalistic observations are observing and recording behavior in a naturally occurring situation without trying to manipulate or control the situation. It doesn't explain behavior, it just describes it. Yeah, I know. I'm really sorry. I didn't even think about that. I apologize so badly, you guys. You know, me and a couple of the teachers, my daughter was talking about how many people from the class of 2020 are probably going to try to go to the prom of 2021. Just so that they can have a prom. Now, the idea of a naturalistic observation is to get general ideas. It's just like a case study. Okay. What I do when I would have my students do so that they understand what a naturalistic observation is, I would set them out at lunch. I said, because most of them either have first or second lunch because we have 2 lunches on our campus. And I say, what I want you to do is you're just going to go out at lunch, take a notebook with you, and I want you to write down 20 behaviors that you see. They're like, what do you mean behaviors? And I specifically talk to them about the difference between a behavior and generalizing and stereotyping people. Does that make sense? Yeah, you didn't think about next year. Yeah, that's what my daughter was talking about to me. Yeah, especially for the girls who bought their dress already. Because you got girls who buy their dresses like 2 or 3 months ahead of time. Anyways, so going back to the naturalistic. And so I have my students and I give them a week. And I tell them what you're going to do at lunch during the week. You can use your phone, your notebook, paper, just sit there and observe and write down your behaviors that you see. Okay. And then at the end of the week, I have them come in my room. And what I do is I set up, I have whiteboards all around my room. Okay. And the whiteboards, I would write girls, boys, 9th graders, 10th graders, 11th graders, 12th graders, athletes, cliques, couples, and other. And then I tell all the kids, I give them all a marker, expo marker, and I say, okay, go to the board, and I want you to write down your behaviors under each of the categories. Okay, and then pardon me. And then after they spend like about 20 minutes putting all their behaviors up, we just go over. Sorry, got a drink from my Yoda cup. Baby Yoda. Sorry. May the 4th be with you. That was yesterday, I know. And then I would read out all the descriptions they write out. And I do this every year, so it's kind of funny when I see them write down the different things, because I always tell them, I said, you guys are a bunch of freshmen, right? They're like, yeah. Someone wrote this about you on my board. And then they all get really quiet, because what ends up happening is we start making general truths from all their descriptions. Like, for example, the freshmen look lost. That's a generalization. They're always carrying big backpacks, and they run to the lunch line. Does that sound like any freshmen that you know at your school? And then when I get to the seniors, generalizations from all their descriptions. They think they're all that in a bag of chips. They think they rule the school. They think they know they're better than everybody else. It was just like all these things. Yeah. And then when I get to the couples, it would be based on all the descriptions that everybody would write about behaviors. They'd be like, they need to get a room, too much affection, go get a room, like generally, yeah, I know. But it was to show the kids how naturalistic observations work and how we can create theories from watching behavior. Yeah? Cool. All right. So, hold on. We're going to move. So that's pretty much it for science as far as what you should know and what you shouldn't know for the AP exam. Remember that the science chapter is a big part of one of the FRQs will be on science. So it's really important that you guys are really, really comfortable with that whole chapter. But here's the thing I'm going to tell you, okay? If you know this stuff, you don't need to study it. If you know it, only study what you don't know. Like, I make my students do vocab cards and they all hate me for it. But I really don't care, because I always tell them there's a method to my madness. And I say, okay, take out your vocab cards. They're like, yeah. If you can look at a word and you already know it in your head, you don't have to study it. Yeah, Quizlet. I love me some Quizlet too. Quizlet, aka Ms. Valdez, has Quizlets too. Okay. So now we're going to go to FRQ and FRQ writing. Who here has never practiced an FRQ? Because I need to know if I have to go over some basics. Who here has never done an FRQ? All right. So here's the thing about FRQ writing. And majority of my students here, should know already. Okay. First of all, you all know there's no thesis, there's no intro, and there's no conclusion. There's no introduction and no conclusion. Yes, SODAS. We're going to talk about that. Okay. So do not spend your time writing a flowery thesis or a big old conclusion, because you're just wasting your time. What I tell my students, and apply SODAS, which I'm going to go over in a second. Yes. When you're answering the FRQ, and they give you the scenario, and then they give you the key terms. Okay. You're basically, and believe it or not, because I have seen it, I have seen people do bullet points, and as long as they do full sentences and small topic paragraphs, they get a 5. Who understands what I'm saying? They get a 5 with bullet points and full sentences and tiny paragraphs. Yeah, they do. I've seen it on an AP exam. You just have to make sure you are applying, and we're going to go over this. So if you notice on my thing, I'm missing the O. I have SODAS. And if you don't know what SODAS is, it's a way that I was taught for the last 10 years when I go to an AP institute during the summer. And I get taught this from actual FRQ graders who've been grading for like the last 8 or 9 years. Okay. And they say they can always tell if a student has been taught SODAS because the way they present, the way they answer their FRQs. No, it's okay. No, you're fine. Don't worry about it. So what I mean by this, so S is for spacing. So when you get an FRQ, okay, when you get the FRQ, it's going to set up, it's going to give you like 8 or 7, well, hopefully they don't give you more than your screen froze, really? Is anybody typing or writing? Can you still see me or no? It's okay now? Okay, cool. You scared me. I was like, oh, okay, hold on. All right, so going back. So when you do SODAS, you have the S is for spacing, the O is for order, the D is for definition, the A is for application, and the S is for synonym. Okay, and what I mean by that is when you answer the questions, and when you answer and you apply each term, leave the spacing is you leave a little space. Like, so if you're typing, you're gonna double space in between each answer. Does that make sense to everybody? If you're writing, you're just gonna skip a line. Yeah or no? Okay. Order. Now, I am skipping order because you guys are on a time thing. Usually the grader likes to grade it according to the rubric. The rubric set up the way they ask you the questions. So with me and what I'm telling my students right now, screw order, just answer what you know. Who understands what Ms. Valdez is saying? Do you all understand what I'm saying? Don't worry about order. It's about you maximizing your points. Yeah? So I skipped the O, okay? So we went spacing, and then we're going to define. 9 times out of 10, they don't ask you and they don't give you a point, but occasionally you get a point for writing a definition. It makes it easier because for the really, really smart students, for those of you that have done FRQs in your room, how many of you can answer it in like two sentences? Who's been able to answer, apply a key term in 2 sentences in your FRQ? Anybody? I only say this because people are really uncomfortable with a 2-sentence paragraph. So putting the definition for the key term, A, makes your paragraph a little bit longer, even if you don't need it. And so you write, the following key term is this, and it means this. Then you apply it, the application, the A, whatever they're asking you. So let's say they give you an experiment, and it's the Bobo the Clown experiment. So when you're answering the question and you're applying the key term, you're not going to get a point if you don't apply it to the scenario that they're giving you. Who understands that? Yeah, I know. I think it's too short too. I think 3 to 4 sentences, so that's why I say put the definition in there. Okay, so spacing, apply the key term to the scenario when you're at I'm back. Are you guys still there or no? Sorry, my internet crashed. It just does not like me. Yeah. So give me a second. Show my video. There we go. Hold on. We got it, and we're back. Yes, we're back. I'm telling you, I am just not having a good moment right now with this computer. All right. Hold on. So there we go. All right. And it should still be on the share thing. Yep. Presenter view. All right. So going back to, all right. So go back. All right. So when you're FRQ writing, hold on just a second, because I have to do one more thing. Okay. And there we go. So much better now. Okay. So when you're FRQ writing, you have spacing, application, definition, and synonym. When you answer the questions, you space in between. You apply the key term to whatever scenario they're talking about. You can use a definition to make a paragraph a little bit longer, 3 to 4 sentences. And then you can also use a synonym, which tells the reader that you actually know the term well enough that you can give another word that has the same meaning. Does that make sense? Yeah, or no. Those are 4 things that you do. Okay. SODAS is what they usually have me teach, but I'm not really talking, and I've kind of been telling my students the same thing. Okay, watch this. They want you to answer in order that the way they set it up, okay? But my thing is this, because you guys are on such a crunch time where you have 25 minutes for one and 15 minutes for the other, and how many of you are planning on having some type of cheat sheet or something available for you guys? Okay, the problem with looking up your answers is it's going to take time away from your writing. So my best advice to you is that you answer what you know and then leave some space. Move on to the second FRQ, answer what you know and leave some space. And then with whatever time you have available at the end, start looking up the stuff to get the answer so that you can answer the rest of the FRQ. Does that make sense? Yep or no? Because it's like it's in either with the FRQ, and the FRQs are going to throw at you. You're either going to know the terms or you're not. And if you stop to like look up the definition so you can apply it, it's taking time away from your writing. Who here writes fast and who writes slow? Because that's going to matter because you have a timer going, which is why I suggest to you doing practice FRQs. Use the demos and practice. Make sense or no? Okay. So this is another thing that I have, which is 4 golden rules of FRQ writing, which is very similar to what I was telling you with the SODAS, which is spacing, definition, application, and synonym. Okay. Always when you're answering, and like I said, you can get a 4 or 5 using bullet points as long as you're using complete sentences. And when you answer in paragraph form. Mini topic paragraphs. Does that make sense to you all? Okay. Use complete sentences. Always write in a paragraph form. Always reference whatever the scenario is. So if the question revolves around Bandura, you shouldn't have an answer with the key term without talking about Bandura and Bobo the Clown. If you don't apply it, you're not going to get the point. And always define the key term because it expands it. Okay. So I'm going to show you because it's all about showing. I'm going to stop sharing right now. Hold on. Okay. So going back, for those of you that are still here, and I'm really sorry that I've had all these computer malfunctions, but I hope that I helped. Did I help? Because I'm going to show you before we check off and leave and we talk about the app Fiveable. Don't forget to find us on Instagram. Don't forget, we're also on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on TikTok. So make sure you look. Do any of you have any questions before I go to show you guys the FRQ and what I'm talking about what a Science FRQ looks like on the AP exam? You're all cool? Let me see. Ask a question. 3 unanswered questions. Can you post a picture of that schedule again? Yes, I will. Hold on. Hold on, Sasha. Yes, I will. Done answering. Yes. And then I'm sure some of them suffered from post-traumatic. Yeah, I know they did. Yes. And could illusory correlation be caused by a confounding variable? Possibly. And I'm glad that you talked about confounding variables, because a confounding variable is anything that can throw off an experiment, which can happen at any time you conduct an experiment. Like my own students conduct their own experiments, and I will tell them, like, if you happen to be in a class where you're conducting it and there isn't anybody else in there, but there's a former AP Psych student in there, they could be the confounding variable, because they might know what you're doing. They might know that, hey, Ms. Valdez usually assigns and they might not react like in the natural situation, so they could throw off your experiment. All right, so I'm going to share with you, because I'm going to pull it up. Give me a second, because I have to pull it, like if it'll let me still do it. All right. So when you're looking at this, hold on. All right. So this is the actual question, that it was a science question. Okay. And if you look, it says a researcher compared the effectiveness measured different distributed practice in preparing for a memory test. Each 2 groups memorized the definition of 40 vocab words. You have group A and you have group B. So automatically, you guys, you're going to have independent, you're going to have the groups. It's setting up an experiment. When you're looking down here at the bottom, it's asking about the operational definition, if I remember correctly, of the dependent variable. It's asking a question about the ethics. Remember what I told you, and how it can be corrected. It's asking a question about what is the design flaw in the experiment, which means there's something wrong with the setup. And it's also asking you to talk about statistical significance and what that means between the groups. Then it moves from part A to part B. And in part B, it's just throwing 2 key terms out at you. Okay, the key terms, fluid intelligence and circadian rhythm. Do any of you by any chance know those key terms? Like my students said, when I showed it to them, they knew circadian rhythm, but they didn't know fluid intelligence. And it's very important when you're looking at it that you know the key terms. But right away, I told them you should have been able to do the top 4, because when you read the scenario, and this is from 2013, you can automatically see there's a control group, there's an experimental group. You can see that there's something wrong in the groups, the way they assign the groups. I'm not going to tell you, because that would give you the answer. Okay. And so there's something ethically wrong with this experiment, because you have to read it all the way to the end, because it should be very obvious. So that's the way they're set up. On the PowerPoint that I posted, that I'm going to be posting, that you'll see later, it'll say operational it'll have 5 different. It'll have 2013, 2014, 2015, and 2017. It just show you 4 different AP questions and how they're set up scientifically, so you kind of know what to expect and know what to look for. You're going to see operational definition pop up quite a few times. Mostly experiment. Occasionally, you'll see a statistics question. Occasionally, I think there was a bar graph on a couple of them. Just look at them, test them out, and try them. Time yourself. 25 minutes. Practice, practice, practice. Okay. I want to thank you guys all for being patient with me. I'm really sorry about all the technical difficulties. I hope I was able to help you guys any way I could. Any questions or concerns? For those of you that are still here, thank you for showing up. Please remember at Bibleable again on our social medias, advertise. Definitely show up to Dr. Mole's FRQ reviews. He's going to review FRQs units 1 through 4 and 5 through 7 next week. Look at the dates. They're posted. And I hope I helped. I'm really sorry about all the technical difficulties, guys, but internet, it crashes. Thanks, and it was great seeing you. Kudos.